Apparently, it's just a little side note here. The original screenplay and story that they wrote had a romance like subplot
between Gilliam and Curtis.
I don't know, between Curtis and someone.
Okay.
But they took it out because it just wasn't working.
Gilliam and Curtis would be hot.
Gross. They couldn't make it.
Why is that gross?
Just thinking of John Hurt and Chris Evans making out just does not do it for me.
It's doing it for me right now.
Wilford and Curtis, I'm in.
3-way.
That's.
So it's John Hurt that grosses you out?
Yeah. All those wrinkles.
Wow.
That voice is beautiful, though. I'll give him that.
I like a few folds.
Here comes the theme!
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and we work our way to the front of the Rotten Tomatoes train. I'm Max.
And I'm Josh, and today we're talking Snowpiercer.
Josh.
We're trying out a new name, dude.
Okay. All right, Josh. It's going to get confusing
All right,
later,
you know what? No, back to Scott.
Okay.
You had a very negative reaction to that.
I just wasn't expecting Josh Tennant on
All right,
today's show.
All right, man.
That's all.
Snowpiercer's rated 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes, it is. We're up here.
And you listeners, y'all picked it.
Y'all picked it. That's right. So
and if you don't like this episode, it's your fault.
Y'all's fault. Each
fault.
week in this 90th percentile, we're picking our own pick, and you guys are picking your pick.
Yep. And Max is picking my nose.
Yeah. So.
Just a little play on words.
Little word play.
Yeah, dude.
Little foreplay before the episode starts, you know? I guess the episode started, but you know
yeah,
what I'm
dude. We're already in it.
Yeah. So, Scott, what you been up to?
Man, it's been a Spider-Man weekend for me. Fa-ting! That's the sound that the web makes, yeah.
That was more of a thwip.
Well, if you listen, that's the sound of the web whipping, like in the air, but the actual sound of it releasing, fa-ting! That's what it does. Anyways, a new video game released on the PlayStation 4. It's Spider-Man, as I alluded to seconds prior.
It looks really cool.
It's very cool.
Though I was a little let down with how the puddle was smaller in the release version versus the version they showed at E3.
Well, that puddle is called the
I'm kidding.
I was going to name something in New York, but I can't think of the name of a body of water in New York.
That was just a meme that was going around this week.
Actually, I think it held up pretty well to its like pre-release footage, but that's always like a thing.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Anyways, the game's really fun. I haven't been like sucked into a game in a while.
Yeah.
So it feels good.
And I'm not saying this to diminish this game at all because it does
Here
look
we
fun.
go.
I watched some of it, but I feel like each Spider-Man game has been pretty solid throughout the generations they've come out. As in, they're super fun to just swing around and do Spidey stuff.
That's the thing that they don't always capture, though. It's like the swinging, but they really nailed it in this one.
But I remember, like, the first few ones that came out, they were fun enough to just do Spidey stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, a great video game mechanic.
It's so unique.
All of his powers are really fun for, like, playing in a game.
For sure. It's one of my favorite, like, superhero games. A game came out on the Xbox called, I think it was, like, Hulk Ultimate Destruction or something like that.
Is that where you just break everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was like objectives to the levels too, but you could just like smash everything and it was awesome. But this one's really fun. I like both the main story, which doesn't follow any of the movies or anything. It probably follows, obviously it's based on the comics.
Stuff,
but yeah, so all the characters are like from the comics, but I think the story's original to the world they're in.
That makes sense.
But I like that. And then even just doing like side stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like you'll just be swinging around and you'll hear the police are like, hey, there's a hostage situation. And your Spidey sense like goes off. You know where it is. You swing down there, you know?
Nice.
Hit him with a little web, you know?
I know you can like walk the streets and wave and point at people.
Yeah. I haven't actually figured out how to point at people.
I don't know.
I saw a GIF of it.
Same.
Or a GIF of it.
I didn't see that.
Okay.
But I saw the GIF. It was good.
I also saw Spider-Man Homecoming again.
Nice.
I'm like 2/3 of the way
it?
through it. Yeah, I've had it for a little while.
I don't know. Just didn't know if it was streaming or you bought it. There's nothing wrong with that question, man.
No, I'm just saying I've had it for a little while.
Well, you just watched it, so.
Yeah. And it's still good. Tom Holland's really good.
Timbaland?
Underrated. Tom Holland.
Tom Holland.
I also like Timbaland. Their One Republic song is really good.
There. It's a singular person, but.
One Republic isn't.
That's true. Who voices Spider-Man in this game? Anybody we know?
I don't know.
Okay. I heard some clips with our friend Paul for All Seasons because he was playing, and I couldn't tell
I don't think it's.
I haven't looked it up because I'm lazy.
It's not like an actor or anything that's like famous. It's probably like a voice actor who's done a bunch of stuff.
I saw they added Spider-Man 3 to Netflix, and I've been real tempted.
Really? Spider-Man 3 Netflix?
What's that?
I'm just surprised that they added that.
Oh yeah, it's on there, and I'm real tempted. I'm telling you.
I watched it again right before Homecoming came out. Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm a big fan of the Raimi trilogy.
The opening night to say it was a huge success. So
like, it's not good, but it's not the nightmare that it's better than Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
That's still a hot take I can't get on board with yet until I rewatch.
I watched all 5 of those movies before Homecoming, and
I'll admit
I was astonished at how bad Amazing Spider-Man 1 was on the rewatch.
It's probably better than the second one because I remember leaving that one thinking like, wow, that movie wasn't very good.
Well, that movie's pure garbage, but a lot of people like the first Amazing Spider-Man, and I did too when I first watched it, but then I watched it again, and I've
not seen it since release, but I did like it. Yeah. I did also like how weird Jamie Foxx's portrayal of his character was in the sequel.
I acknowledge how weird it was.
In a bad way. Like, I like that everyone said, this is a good decision.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Blue, and he's...
There was a lot of decisions
like that. I'm going to electrocute you because people were mean to me. It's just weird, man.
And then Rhino, they wasted Paul Giamatti.
God. Yeah,
I hate that.
Weird one. That's a weird one.
I fucking hate that for Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul G.
Apologies to Paul G.
So you watch anything or you just been doing the Spidey life?
Well, I just said I watched Spider-Man Homecoming.
I guess that's true, yeah. Well, half of it.
2/3.
2/3.
Excuse you.
So you stop to write when they get to like the school dance section, the Homecoming, and you're like, I gotta stop here.
Well, yeah, it was like right before I came over to record.
Yeah, because I mean that's when it gets crazy. You can't stop once you.
The Staten Island ferry scene is really good.
It is cool.
On the rewatch. Yeah. And Tony Stark delivering those lines, if the suit is all you are, you don't deserve to have it, or whatever. That's probably not right, but I'm rewatching Survivor Ghost Island as well, the most recent.
Yeah, that's the one where they put Ghost on the island and they had to get people.
Yeah, and it holds up pretty well on the rewatch. The thing about Ghost Island, they just announced the cast for the next season of Survivor, David vs. Goliath, which starts, I think, in 2 weeks, but... They have all these like wacky themes now that get abandoned after like 2 episodes because they like scramble the tribes. But this new one is like underdogs versus people who've been set up for success and stuff. I don't know. It's dumb. But Ghost Island, it had a really good winner, and the post merge was really boring because like you could see that it was going to be one of 2 people who won. So for like 5 straight episodes, it didn't really matter what happened. It got really good at the very end again. But then the pre-merge, which is like the first half of the game, was really good. Like almost every vote out was interesting. A lot of interesting decisions. One of the more famous Survivor failures is in these. He gets voted out second in Ghost Island. He poured all the tribe's rice into one of his socks so that he could see if there was an idol in the rice container or not.
Did they know he did that?
No, I don't think they did. He was searching for, and then he told. Like, he went to Ghost Island, came back, and he was like, yeah, I have an idol. And everyone's like, we don't believe him. And he was like, I have him convinced that I have an idol. And then he was talking to someone else like an hour later, and he's like, by the way, I don't have an idol. And they're like, oh, okay. And they just vote him out.
That's funny.
Yeah. Jacob was his name. Oh, Jacob. And then the next vote out was really good. They swapped the tribes.
That's the one that's currently on?
No, this is last season.
Last season.
And then the new one starts in like 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
So that's what I've been watching. What about you, man?
Well, it's still a little bit light on my plate right now, but I knocked out the first couple episodes of the new Amazon Prime series, Jack Ryan, starring John Krasinski. Dude, he's more than just Jim from The Office, man. He's like a director. He's an actor. He's married to Emily Blunt. Show some respect, Scott.
Emily Blunt's married to him.
I disagree. I don't know what means which,
but you still disagree.
You're factually incorrect, sir.
I've heard mixed things. I know you've enjoyed it, right?
Yeah, I tend to just kind of like Jack Ryan as a character in a series as far as like the films go.
Yeah.
I could not get into the Chris Pine movie, but I wasn't in the right, I just wasn't ready to watch it.
That one also just got bad reviews.
Yeah.
So.
But so did Some of All Fears, and I kind of like Some of All Fears with Ben Affleck in the role there.
So let's do a point counterpoint between an opinion I read from a friend who had also watched it and posted on Facebook, and you. They said it was boring.
The first episode is very slow moving because it's establishing a lot of story.
Yeah, so that might be the problem.
The first episode ends pretty cool. It has like a nice emotional ending to it. And then the second episode ends with a bang.
Okay, their second opinion. Let's see if you can counter it. It was generic?
I mean, I don't know what that means, honestly.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched it yet.
It's like any CIA analyst type setting.
Maybe that's what, like, the generic would be that it doesn't feel unique.
Like, it just feels real world. I don't know.
Yeah. It looks like Homeland a bit to me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you watch all of Homeland and maybe 24 back to back, like, for
and
a
then
long
Jack
time,
Ryan, you'd be like, which series am I on?
That's Jim from The Office, but it's.
But if you didn't, then you'd say that's John Krasinski.
Well, it's just like I'm just going in thinking like that's Jack Ryan.
Yeah.
It's a Jack Ryan series. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, like the movies themselves have always been kind of just real world, like an analyst who gets pulled into an event that is he's really in over his head most of the time as far as like the action side. Like he has some military background, but he's not. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's not a soldier.
Yeah. Well, he was at one point, but he's moved away from it basically,
okay.
And the whole thing is like where James Bond is always like, I want to get out of the action, but then he's there for every mission.
Jack Ryan wants in.
Barely. It's just like he wants to solve the situation, but his higher ups make him go into a situation above his readiness because he's the expert, and then he has to fix everything. So
very much like Get Smart.
Yeah.
Actually, it kind of is.
Starring Michael Scott from The Office.
Yes, dude.
So,
well, I'd like to try it too. So I know it's pretty fresh, so we can't talk
it's
too much detail yet. But
for me, like I said, I'm going in knowing I like the Jack Ryan character and the stuff he gets to do. So I like seeing the kind of nerdy guy get pushed out there. And when I say kind of nerdy, I mean he's still like John Krasinski's, fit self. So
13 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Stories of the horses or whatever. I know. Stories of the horses. But yeah,
we should write that
just fun.
Like a collection of short stories just called Stories of the Horses.
Yeah.
And it's just excerpts of the script of Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron.
One of my favorites. But then also they added season 3 of Fargo to Hulu.
Oh, really?
So I started
I don't have
into
Hulu
that,
anymore.
So yeah, Mr. YouTube Pro over here.
YouTube TV, but that's fine.
So. But yeah, I jumped
fire.
I jumped into that. Just watched the first episode again because I'd watched the first episode on Premiere, but I never stuck with it.
Yeah. I wait on like when it premiered.
Yeah.
Like, I thought Premiere was like a streaming service. I was like, I haven't heard of that. I must sign up.
Maybe I'll abandon YouTube Pro for it.
It's YouTube TV, dude. Stop it.
I know.
I liked the first 2 seasons of Fargo. So we've talked about them a bit.
Yeah.
And the movie we talked about more than a bit. We've talked about that a bot. It's a bit or a bot.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick with it, see where it goes.
So So how many episodes in the new Fargo did you watch?
I only watched one, but there's like 8 or 10 episodes, so that one I usually just like
the miniseries,
like take my time.
Yeah, I didn't hear as much about this 3rd season after like the first 2 were amazing, and then maybe this one was a little.
I heard a ton of praise for both Carrie Coon and Mary Elizabeth Winstead on it. Okay. And some people, I don't remember if Carrie was nominated for stuff for it.
No, I don't think she was.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people were upset that both of them weren't even like considered for anything for it.
I know a lot of people were upset that Carrie Coon wasn't nominated specifically for The Leftovers.
Yeah. So in general, I think people were upset that she wasn't, but I heard the same thing with.
And that's the voice of. What was her thing in Avengers? Proxima Danger, I think.
Yeah. If not, dude, write that down because that shit's good.
Yeah. Well, it's recorded, so.
Yeah. But write it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we have another new segment to pitch.
Do we?
Yeah.
Is this pitching it?
Or well, no. Like the segment's been pitched and it's getting in the episode because here we are. We're doing our last 95%er here.
Yeah.
We've only got a few more percentage points to go, and we need a new format for the podcast. So, this is our new podcast pitch segment. Each week we're gonna alternate. This week I will pitch a new format for the podcast. Max will get one next week, and we're just gonna keep going like that. So, listeners, let us know your opinions on our formats. And whichever one gets the most positive feedback, we're going to do that next. Right?
We'll say that at least. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's on record.
Yeah. So
get it in writing.
So give me 90 seconds on the clock.
Okay.
And I'm going to pitch my podcast, and then we'll have a brief Q&A with you, the Qs, and me, the As. And And then we'll get some feedback on this, you know?
All right. And
we got 90 on the clock?
Yeah, we'll get 90 on the clock.
Okay.
And go.
Okay. So my podcast idea is called Farm to Table Toast. And I know you're already interested. So let me expand a little more so I can stoke that interest into a burgeoning flame. You've heard of how stuff works. You're interested in systems. You're interested in how things work. And you're interested in toast. I know you are, because everyone loves carbs, you know? Toast is the simplest form. You know, it's a carb bread on a carb butter. So what we're going to do is we're going to make toast. And that sounds simple, but we're doing it like this. We're going to go from the very beginning. We're going to grow our own wheat. We're going to make our own toasters. We're going to churn our own butter. We're going to go all the way from the beginning, all the way to the end. In the podcast, we're going to talk about that process. And then we're also going to have extra content, video content. You and me out in the field, tilling our wheat, whatever you do to wheat, you know? We're going to smelt iron to make toasters. We're not just doing this over an open flame. We're going to make a toaster. We're going to learn how to do the electric part of the wiring. So there's a lot going on. It's not just wheat. It's not just eating toast. We're learning about all these different processes to see what gets the simplest breakfast food into your belly every morning. That's Farm to Table Toast. Coming to your ears this winter.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, 90 seconds is up.
All right. 90 seconds is a lot more time than I thought when I said it.
Yeah, so that's Farm to Table Toast.
Yeah, so what do you think? Questions?
How much documentation of this process do you expect? I mean, I've never built a toaster, so I'd have to learn how to do the mechanics.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, we're gonna learn all of it, man.
So, do we record us learning, or do we record us executing?
Both.
It's a lot of
we
editing
record.
time.
Okay, so
we
learn about like the climate.
Teaching you how to record and edit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If that's part of the toast process.
Team it.
Yeah, dude.
The documentation process is part of the process itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that works.
Farm to table. And then table to ears.
There you go, folks.
So we're going to learn about the climate, about wheat. We're going to learn about the history of wheat, you know?
Yeah.
I would like to make sourdough.
Well, you start small, Scott.
Okay, yeah.
Get your baby steps, son.
Okay. Yeah.
Like we're starting with toaster, not toaster ovens, you know?
I think if we can figure out how to smelt the iron and learn the wiring of a toaster, we could do a toaster oven.
It just seems simpler to do the toaster versus toaster oven.
I don't know. I think the toaster oven's actually simpler. The toaster, you got to have the pop.
Yeah.
That you got to learn like springs and stuff. A toaster oven, you don't have to worry about that.
But that's closer to being an open flame then.
The toaster oven?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's simpler.
Yeah, but I'm saying, we should aim for the toaster then. You said toaster.
Look, man.
Do it. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You know?
We can't put the toaster before the wheat. We got to learn how to grow the wheat.
Well, yeah. I agree.
You know, your yard's flatter than mine. That's undeniable.
Yeah.
Don't argue that.
But I'm just saying, we gotta look at the soil. It's not
I
not
agree.
The lay of the land. It's what's in it.
Well, the lay also matters.
Both matter.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
That's what I said.
I'll give you that.
That's what I said, and then you just switched it to both matter.
But
I feel like this is a bit of a grilling. I feel like this is an inquisition.
You told me to give you the Q's, so give me the A's.
I did give you the A's, man.
So it's not a grilling.
I'm just saying, you didn't have anything positive to say.
It's a
so
toasting.
I just wish you'd have one positive to say. Like, good idea. Like, that's a thinker.
Good idea, Scott.
Well,
that's a
thinker. We can't wait for next week. It's your idea. And then you know what? I will use an open flame for your idea.
Well, if you're promoting open hostilities, that's not safe, Scott. That's not safe.
Okay, dude.
I'm interested. It's just there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You know? I've never made bread from scratch.
Exactly.
One time I tried to make flat bread, and I just got like a bunch of really dry flour at the end of it that was roasted.
And you know what, dude? This is your chance.
Maybe.
We're going to grow our own yeast.
I just, I get worried when you say stuff like that.
That we're going to grow our own yeast.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I have enough yeast infections over the year to know that I can grow my own yeast.
Just think, we have so many ideas to get through that, I can't put all my eggs in one basket yet. So I have to be reserved.
Do we even need eggs for toast?
Probably.
Okay.
For the bread.
Right.
Maybe. Depends on the bread. If you're making brioche, yeah.
This is what we're going to learn, dude.
If you're making brioche.
I think brioche isn't the big thing with a brioche, the extra butter.
Well, yeah, but you also have to egg wash it. Right, you got to egg wash it, man.
Look who's getting ahead of themselves now.
I know about some egg wash.
Anyways, listeners, let's farm to table toast. Let us know your thoughts. We're going to keep a power rankings going on our website. Next week, Max is going to have the 90. Maybe that's what we could call this segment, the 90.
The 90.
90 in the 90s.
Yeah, we'll have the 90. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then maybe I'll try and...
Good name, Scott. The 90.
Thanks, dude. And then next week, I'll try and pierce Max's idea with my own questions. I'll try to...
piercing, man.
I'll try and pierce it, And maybe when we're done, it'll feel a little cold.
Yeah.
It'll feel like, is it snowing outside after I pierce his idea with my questions? It's going to be like, it's so cold in here because you're not warm to my idea. Is it snowing with the piercing questions?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Together, we can train each other.
Okay. To make toast.
To learn how to make toast.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
So we watched Snowpiercer this week.
I like how we set that up so naturally, and then we still just smash cut right into it.
Hey, man, sometimes you got to smash cut into it,
Into a loaf of bread that we make in our homemade toaster.
What if we end up making protein bars out of roaches?
Spoilers. Well, what's the plot synopsis versus Snowpiercer?
Set in a future where a failed climate change experiment kills all life on the planet except for a lucky few who boarded the Snowpiercer, a train that travels around the globe, where a class system emerges. That's a weird synopsis.
Globe.
I
like that. I really like that.
It's just written weird.
Yeah. No, I mean it is.
But it hits the points.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the yeah.
It's both a really hard movie to explain and a really easy movie to explain at the same time.
Yeah.
Because people just don't believe you when you say it's set in a frozen landscape on a train where the only survivors are on the train.
Yeah.
And there's a class system, and you're just like, yeah, I guess so.
You're like,
cool.
Yeah, and Captain America's in it.
Yeah.
And he is, by the way.
And Ollivander, the wand dude from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and
The Thing.
The Thing.
Jamie Bell.
Yeah, dude. Nice. Yeah. And then, Ed Harris, from National Treasure, too.
Yeah, that's
Book
true.
of Secrets.
A good movie.
Which holds up.
Yeah.
Bruce Greenwood plays the president.
Funny how that seems weird now.
I think it's cool. He's played the president in a lot of different
Now you could
movies.
have the president played by Artie Lang and it would be fine.
Josh Gad.
He's a serious actor now.
He is. Dude.
What? I think I'm quoting you from earlier in the week.
I know you're quoting me from earlier in the week. And he is a serious actor. This is directed by Bong Joon-Ho.
Yes, it is. Who also directed The Host. I think that's the other movie a lot of people know him for.
But
he has a big,
This was his first and maybe to date only English language movie.
Was Okja English?
Did he do Okja?
Yeah, I think he did Okja.
Hell yeah, dude, it was.
Yeah.
It was good.
I still haven't seen it, man. I
the amazing thing about Okja, I watched it shortly after getting Mickey, my pug. So everything I've ever watched since then has changed my perspective totally. Mm-hmm. Every animal in a movie I just see as my dog.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's how it
including the fish in this movie.
Yeah. It's weird.
My least favorite part of the movie. Anyways, it's based on, I believe, a graphic novel.
Yes.
By
it's called La Transpersonnage.
La Transpersonnage, I believe is how you would say that.
I don't really know.
I don't think I'm right.
Okay. By
I can count to 3 in French.
Jacques Loeb.
Yeah.
Benjamin Legrand. And Jean-Marc Rochette.
Jean-Marc Rochette. Sorry to all these French
if you're French
creators and to the French people.
To our friend Albert Dublier.
And the graphic novel I bet would be a good read.
I read the synopsis on it and it's pretty different. And,
okay,
but it's,
never mind.
It's
premise, probably not a good read.
The premise is about the same, the initial premise of frozen landscape, people on a train. That's the same, and the class system in there. But funny you should say it. Director Bong, as they called him on set, back in like 2005, he found the graphic novel and he just pulled it off his shelf and started reading it and didn't move from the bookshelf where he found it. He was just like captivated by it and just read the whole thing there. Was like, I got to make a movie out of this. Like, this is amazing. And then he showed some of the other directors who, like, some of them produced this and stuff. Yeah. And
what was the last thing you read that you just couldn't peel yourself away from?
Educated, that memoir I talked about a couple episodes back. It was amazing.
Right on.
So, but he knew he had to change the story a good amount to make it cinematic.
But he just loved the setting.
Yeah, and the premise, the initial premise of the survivors on a train and the inequality, like, he was like, there's a big story there. The characters themselves, I mean, they're important to the story, but it should be built around that premise for a movie. Like, to fit on the screen the right way, you have to change some stuff.
Sure.
So he went into it with that mindset, but that's how they made the deal to make it, and the creators were supportive because they're actually in the movie at certain points. And apparently the artwork done by the one guy in the train was one of the comic artists.
Yeah,
so,
I read about that too, which is cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, so like the train ends up with like a whole like 1% in the front and then like the rest of the people in the back in like a very, like, it looks like the slums.
Yeah, definitely. And what's cool is the movie, like, it begins with giving you just enough information to understand why these people are in the back of the train, that they're poor, and that things suck. And that the world is frozen. Like, that's really how you start the movie, knowing it. And they don't do like a thing where they're willfully making you confused. Yeah. It's just as you progress in the train is how you learn more about what actually happened, what's going on.
Yeah.
With some good devices that work really, really well, like as far as filmmaking goes to tell you stuff.
Yeah.
So instead of just doing like blocks of stupid exposition, you might meet a character and they're like, oh, you know, we've been wondering where you're at. Like, you're weird now. Like, this is different. Or they end up in school where the kids are learning a lesson, which is
it's like natural.
Yeah, it's a very simple but clever way to teach you some backstory.
Yeah. There were a couple times where I felt like they over-explained things, but for the most part, it's really good of like a show don't tell.
Yeah.
Like at one point, one of the characters who they like break out of the train prison, he like lights a cigarette, and there was only 2 in there, and everyone was like shocked. So from that, I could kind of posit that like cigarettes are rare, but then somebody has to say like, cigarettes, those must be the last in the world, or like something, or like I thought those were gone years ago,
extinct.
And it's like so on the nose that it almost took me out of the movie for a second, but then I was back in because for the most part it is really well done the way they and it's a very like foreign concept, and they still do a good job of opening monologue displaying that scene and a closing monologue to give some. It's funny that you mentioned that they avoided, and then the movie ended up having like a totally butchered U.S.
they really
of exposition because
well, I said who would have been surprised that the Weinstein Company had some shady characters in it.
I know, dude.
Like, but there are big chunks.
But
so real talk. I mean, I remember this came out in theaters.
Yeah, its widest release it ever had was just 350 theaters, and that was after the director refused to re-edit the movie. Weinstein wanted them to re-edit like 20 minutes of the movie too, and he refused. And so then after like months, Weinstein eventually sold it to some, or like maybe it's a subsidiary of the Weinstein Company, but distribute it in just like a few art house theaters.
Yeah, so it hit a couple theaters, and I think it hit VOD the same week.
Shortly after.
I saw it in theaters, and I've said the story before, where I made myself basically late to work on purpose to see it.
And we did call your boss, and you are fired. By the way,
I left that job years ago, so that's fine. But
no, it's don't even commit to the bit with me.
It's
that's fine.
It would just be a weird bit that it's in the past.
Yeah,
so,
but
not
everybody knew.
Save that for our time travel pitch.
No, dude, I'm done. I'm fucking out.
Guys, Scott just quit the podcast. It's kind of funny because a lot of people are vaguely, if you're into film and you haven't seen it, you're vaguely aware of the movie.
Yeah,
like,
that's how I always was.
Yeah, and a couple of the other movie peeps I talked to, they are like, I kind of remember the poster to that, but I never saw it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a shame because I love this movie, and I think like most people would get some enjoyment out of it. So it's well regarded,
obviously
well rated.
Yeah, even like well reviewed, like weird concept movies. Sometimes it's hard to get into. Like there's like an Ethan Hawke time travel movie. I think it's called Predestination. That got really good reviews, and I still haven't watched it because I just like can't get in that right mind. And like Snowpiercer's the same way. And I probably wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't for this, at least for a while. Like, I'd have to be in a weird mood, and it would have to be free streaming, and it's nowhere streaming now.
Yeah, it used
to buy. You had to buy it.
Yeah.
So Which is good because now you own it.
Yeah.
And now
digital copy.
You're starting to fill out your digital collection.
Yeah, I guess I have to.
Yeah, dude.
Movies anywhere, baby. Movies anywhere.
What?
That's one of the services.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bong Joon-Ho.
Director Bong.
He wrote the first pass of the story and the screenplay, and then brought in Kelly Masterson, who he's written some other stuff, and Bong really liked his work. So he wrote like Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Was like,
that's Sidney Lumet, I believe.
Maybe.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it. Ethan Hawke might even be in it.
Let's see. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, dude.
It's all correct.
I think my dad actually recommended that movie to me. I haven't seen it yet. I've been meaning to. But it's about like a heist that goes wrong or something. Anyways.
That's interesting, yeah. But so I mean he brought him in and they rewrote it, and then they when they started casting it, Chris Evans was, going for this role here. But
he wasn't a perfect fit though.
Yeah, their concern was he is such a fucking beefcake, dude.
Yeah, they were like, this guy looks too much like Captain America.
Yeah, this guy's like cut. Like his muscles have muscles.
Yeah, the problem was obviously, an Adonis.
Yeah.
But after 17 to 18 years living in the slums of a train, eating protein bars, jelly protein made from crickets or bugs, you find out basically, grind it up. They didn't think it would be believable to have such a muscly, perfect god amongst because
he's already like tall as hell. So like he's just his head's always above everyone else.
How tall is Chris Evans? Is he a Krasinski or taller?
That's a good question. They both tried out for Captain America. Obviously, Chris got it.
Yeah,
obviously. He's 6 feet even, so you would think he's short.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he is short.
But he's Hollywood tall.
That is Hollywood tall.
Yeah.
I remember I was having a conversation with someone at work the other day, and I forget who we were talking about. Maybe it was Daniel Craig. They're like, I mean, he's giant. I was like, I don't think Daniel Craig's that tall. And I looked at him, he's like 5'10" or something. And he was like, no, I don't believe it. And like Tom Cruise is actually revealed the other, he's 4'8".
Yeah. He doesn't even actually have legs.
Can you believe that? Yeah. Some actors wear lifts. He wears legs.
Yeah.
So it makes the Mission Impossible movies even better.
Those stunts, man.
He does them himself.
Yeah.
They have to specially make all the gear for someone so tiny.
So yeah, Chris Evans is in this film. Like we said, they used clever shots and clothing to kind of mask his bulkiness. He doesn't look huge. He just looks normal. Basically.
He's wearing like a lot of bulky clothing at all times, basically. We don't have a good scene of him like ripping his shirt off. Like there's a shower scene at one point. Yeah. And I wish like we'd gotten some of that, like to see him like the blood like pour off of him.
That would have been funny.
God, I would have jerked off.
So
wait, what?
This has a pretty big cast, but I would say one of your more noticeable people after Chris Evans is definitely Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, Tilda Swinton plays an antagonist.
Mason?
Yeah. And I was reading that John C. Reilly was originally the part was either written for John C. Reilly or he was cast.
Yeah.
But then they changed it a bit for Tilda Swinton, but she's so weird in this. I love it.
Oh yeah. And she says almost after every movie she finishes that might be her last movie. She doesn't decide on if she's going to still act till she gets offers and then looks at what's out there. Yeah. So she always picks on what's the most fun. Yeah. So she saw this, was like, this sounds really fun. Yeah. And so then I guess her and Bong worked together to create these weird mannerisms and voices. And so then
it works really well.
Yeah, because it's so weird. It's so weird in a good way.
I can picture John C. Reilly doing it too.
Oh, yeah.
I love John C. Reilly.
Yeah, same. But the shoe speech she does right away like gives you so much insight into what a weird character she is.
Yeah, like someone throws a shoe at her after they take his child. A fitting response, I would say.
Yeah.
And then they like pretty gruesomely like they put his arm outside the window of the train for 7 minutes. It gets totally frostbitten, and then with like a massive comical hammer, they break it off, and it's like awful. But it's about keeping these people down, and like they're there to serve the rich people, basically. In the train. Yeah.
It's a good way to set that inequality. This first act is so like brutal, and
the whole movie is pretty brutal.
Yeah, but as you move through, like the whimsy of the train shows up for a little bit, where things are just kind of like darkly, kind of like entertainingly gross and magical, and this part's just gross and just hard to watch, but like in a really compelling way.
Because it's interesting. It's provocative.
Yeah, and it's you find yourself like thinking, if I was in that situation,
I would have
do?
died.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't.
Scott, that's I love that that's how you describe most situations. Like anything that's like out of the ordinary, you're like, yeah, I would just die. I'm not going to lie. I would just die.
I just want to make sure I'm not like depressed. Like I'm not going to kill myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have survived the train situation.
No,
I get that.
I get you.
I would probably have been assigned to the car where they make the protein bars.
Yeah.
And then I probably would have died.
I know, man. Yeah. They showed that IT crew at one point. You could have been in those little IT booths.
Yeah, but God, I would have died there too.
Yeah, that's when you would.
Because I don't know about computers very well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a train computer. I don't know what they do.
It's just a train computer.
I don't even know what train computers are.
Pretty complicated security and stuff. It's a lot of upkeep there.
So, yeah.
Can you imagine?
I just wouldn't want to
just think about it for a second.
I wouldn't want to be the sushi chef.
For sure. Yeah.
If there's a pizza chef, I would just stick with that.
Yeah, every car they went to, I didn't like. Like they were like, "Oh, here's a creepy school where Allison Pill is the teacher," and I was like, "I wouldn't like that." I'm like, would anyone like sushi? I'm like, no.
Yeah, I hate sushi.
There was another car that came up, even in like the rich part, that I wouldn't have. Oh, it was like a rave club.
Yeah, there's a rave one. There's a hot tub one.
Even if I were the richest person on the train, I don't think I would have liked it.
Yeah, why do you think?
I would have been like, put me back in the back.
Why do you think Wilford just stayed in his little cage up front, man?
That's true, yeah.
It's weird.
Well, yeah, so like Wilfred runs the train. You don't see who he is.
You didn't even hear his name till like later on.
And you don't hear his voice. They call on him a couple of times. So about halfway through the film, I had a couple theories. One of them was Wilfred's dead.
Yeah.
And the train just keeps running.
It's not a bad theory.
Because like they called Wilfred for a speech and he didn't answer.
Yeah.
And then they like get to the end of the train and like there's nothing there. Like the door can't open and stuff. So I was like, he's definitely dead. And then my other theory was, so like the whole setting, the reason they're in this post-apocalyptic world, I think we mentioned it already, is they released this like chemical agent in order to try and like counter global warming. But what it did was it killed everything and everyone. And
froze everything.
In the school scene, like it's right around New Year's because the track that Wilfred built goes around the whole world and it takes exactly a year to run around everything. In the school scene, they're going over the history and they're talking about how like he's always been obsessed with trains and his dream was to have a train that was self-sustaining and you never had to get off of it. The temperature, it was fine no matter how hot or how cold it got, it was fine. Whatever was on the tracks, it could go through them. The engine was superpowered. So I thought he had something to do with either sabotaging this environmental chemical agent or part of the distribution to make the world go under so that his train would be like needed and in use and stuff because it even goes into how everyone laughed at him for his idea and stuff. Yeah. So none of that happened, but it was still.
I mean, that wouldn't be like.
If I wrote the movie, both of those things would have been true.
That wouldn't have like ruined the film or anything. But the way they do it here instead is it does happen regardless of him, but him being the savior like gives him this kind of like church-like reverence on the train. Yeah. He's almost like a political and religious figure on the train.
Yeah. And then he even, like everybody is, he's like a demigod kind of on the train.
Yeah.
But even he is like a servant to the engine. He's the great engine.
Yeah. And the order that it requires to function.
Yeah. So, to keep this ecosystem alive, it all requires balance.
Yeah. And so the plot here that really like drives the movie forward. First of all, it's cool that like you're going from one side of the train to the other because that's a great mechanic for just like making a plot.
Yeah,
so
it has a natural drive.
Exactly. It has the most simplest path.
It has a lot of natural locomotion.
Yeah, exactly. But I mentioned there's an Every Frame a Painting video about this before where they talk about decision making. So a lot of the decisions that Chris Evans' character Curtis has to make are based on him. I think it's like looking left and right. And every time he has to make a decision, it's him looking, I believe,
it's
to
like
the
looking
left,
back or looking forward,
back, and then looking forward to the right. And so there's like the basic plot
back and
here.
to the left. Sorry,
there's a basic the basic plot is they want to revolutionize. They want to overthrow the train.
This is the back of the train.
Yeah,
the poor people
can take it over and distribute the wealth so that everyone's okay. They all live in a more peaceful, harmonious world versus the rich people at the front, and it works its way back till you're just trash at the back.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea. And
back trash.
They have an informant working for them in the front of the train who keeps sending little messages through the food.
Yeah.
And
little one-word messages.
Yeah, and it gives them hints and stuff. And they have this man named Gilliam, played by John Hurt.
Yep.
Who is he's kind of like their like spiritual leader.
sure.
/ original political leader before Curtis kind of stepped into the light here.
He has there's like a reverence for him.
Yes. And you
like,
find out later
I even
why.
commented before you find out, but like there was this weird like Messiah factor around him. And the whole time they keep commenting on how Curtis is like fighting this leadership role. And you don't really know why, but everyone's looking to him as the leader, but he keeps saying like, oh no, I'm not the leader. It's what was the
Gilliam.
Gilliam's the leader. Like we got to get Gilliam to the front. He needs to start running things. And then even the people in the back of the train are like, everyone's looking to you.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether you want or not, you're leading.
Come on,
us,
dude.
You know? And he's like shrugging, and then again, you find out later why.
Yeah. And what's really cool, I love just the from the moment that there's no bullets in their guns.
Yeah.
From that moment on until maybe right when they get to the schoolhouse, it is just like breakneck speed of insanity.
Yeah.
And even when they take rest, it's like a small rest for 45 seconds, and the madness starts again.
Yeah, it's like nonstop action, kind of.
And it's really cool because, I mean, Curtis runs up to a guy with a gun. He had figured out they had no bullets, and Gilliam was very hesitant for him to do that for their revolution. And it seems like Gilliam's just like, I don't want you to get shot because you're probably wrong.
Yeah.
And they for sure don't have bullets, so they can't shoot him. And then they just start yelling out, they don't have bullets and everything.
And
they
then
grab
it's
that
like,
giant pipe to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
And it's
They've been
shot
planning
so cool. Yeah, it's like people running with the pipe, jumping over the pipe, grabbing onto stuff. Just like the way it moves, it's so cool.
It seems like you wouldn't be able to do that like in such a limited space. Like how wide is a train car? Like 12 feet or something?
When it's like a super long, huge train, I guess.
But
it's
even
different.
still,
yeah.
because I mean, you got to think like it's like standardized train tracks. But like the width of a car is like a finite amount.
Well, I mean, I assumed he built his own track. So
I assumed he connected existing tracks and stuff. But either way,
yeah.
It's such a limited space, so the action has to be filmed in like a particular way, and they do keep it consistent throughout. Like, you'll have the shots that are like down the cars, and you can see all the people along the sides. And
I love when they show the track, like the train moving ahead of the stuff. Because
in
real life,
really
if you ever
cool.
see that, it's freaky. Like on real trains, and so when you see it in the movie, it's like super cool. So,
yeah. And then the action like ramps up. They get to a point like after a couple cars, they break out this. I don't remember the character's name, but he was from the front of the car, and he designed the security system.
Yeah.
And he was addicted to this drug.
Chronal. Yeah, which is just the engine discharge, basically.
Yeah.
It's very flammable and very hallucinogenic.
Yeah, and it's him and his daughter.
Yeah.
And they keep opening the doors in exchange for this drug so they can move forward.
And he's just a smart ass who's with him for the drug.
Yeah.
He's just like, whatever, dude. Yeah, let's do this.
Both of them are. The father and the daughter.
Yeah.
And then they get to this one car where like things really go crazy. The security from the front of the cars there, they all have like batons and
axes.
Yeah, and axes, hatchets, and
blade
stuff.
weapons.
And things got like really bloody and gruesome.
They're wearing like Black Ops gear. Like,
because then they get
face masks and
they
stuff.
get to a point where it's like New Year's happens and there's like an announcement throughout the car and everybody stops, which I thought was weird. Because it's like this revolution's happening and this announcement comes that it's New Year's and both sides just like stop, and I think the front car people started like chanting something. Wasn't there like a rhyme or a song?
I think
they
were chanting that they're approaching either like the tunnel.
Yeah, because that happens right after that.
Yeah, or they were chanting something about what was about to happen. But yeah, it was all connected to like it had a very ceremonial feel to it.
But I was a little surprised that both sides stopped.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like you hear those stories about like in World War.
It's a moment of levity, basically, like in World War I.
Yeah, on Christmas Day, the two sides like played soccer together. You hear that kind of stuff, and that happens here. And then right after that New Year's part, they get to like a tunnel, and the daughter, who they keep playing on having premonitions, they never really dive into it, but she's like, "Oh, we're about to get to a tunnel, and it's a long one."
Yeah,
and
she's
then
like, you
all
guys are fucked.
Yeah, she says that like literally. That's a quote. And then all the front car people put these Black Ops gear on. It goes completely dark, and the Asian father who's opening up the doors, he puts her like inside the cars to hide her, and then it's just like they're mowing down the back of car.
It's like one of the few movies I've seen, and I don't think a lot
even
try this.
Scene.
Yeah, where it's scary. They're doing night vision shots of like POV shots of stabbing people, and it's just hard to watch.
Yeah,
but what's cool with that is, since all of these poor folk are in the back of the train where there's like no windows, there's not really any light exposure. They don't know that there's a tunnel there, so it completely fits within like the world that they would be taken this aback by it.
Yeah, and like totally caught off guard.
Yeah, and this is since we just were introduced to the cigarettes, there was a couple matches, and they're able to start the torch and do like an Olympic torch running scene. That
was pretty cool.
When I first saw it, I was like, they're not doing this, and then I was like, I fucking love that they're doing.
It was
this.
like cheesy, but it was still cool.
Well, it gets you kind of hyped because you just watch them get like massacred, like a third of them, and then you see the armless guy running, the kid was running, and then the crazy skinny kid takes it and starts running, and it's what's cool is they filmed that apparently just using the light of the torch, so they like lit it very. I guess what would you say that's authentically
natural,
but which is crazy because that's not a lot of light at all. I guess if it's a big torch, it kind of is.
And then more torch get lit as it goes, but like the one run, I mean, it is.
So when they have a bunch of torches, that's easier to light. But no, it's a fun scene, and then a bunch of things happen there because it's kind of a turning point where he has to decide: do I go back and save Edgar, played by Jamie Bell, or do I continue on and get Mason?
Tilda Swinton.
So he goes for Mason, and it kind of decides the bigger picture is worth more than the small stuff. But
Edgar was like his bro, his BFF. They said he looked
brother.
up to him,
and
stuff. Yeah, I was very annoyed throughout.
He starts off okay, but then he has some moments when he's just too antagonistic with people.
Yeah,
like why are you pissing people off? Yeah. So
I would have eaten him.
Well, that does come up.
Uh-huh.
No, so the next sections we already kind of touched on some of them.
It slows down a bit after this. They do capture Mason. Jamie Bell's Edgar dies. He's killed there. And then there's like a stop, because they get to the water car. That's why this big defense is here, because now they have the water and they're kind of in control, so Mason has to listen to them. And Mason's like, I'll take you to the front.
They think they have the water car, yeah. It's kind of cool because they're like, well, if we take the water, they have to listen to our demands. And they get there, and she's like, you guys are idiots. Like, the front of the train collects the water. This just gives you guys water.
Yeah.
And so then there's like a small debate of, do we just keep this from here back, or do we keep moving on? And they decide, like you said, to keep moving on.
Mason's like, I can get you to the front.
Yeah.
You just have to kill Wilfred.
Yeah.
And they're like, you don't care? And she's like, as long as I'm alive.
Yeah.
Like,
Do you see
care.
how much of a coward she is?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
But it's also more like a cunning type of cowardice. So.
Yeah. And then you start to see like the culture of the front of the car. They walk through like a car that's full of like orange trees. And they walk through a car that's an aquarium, and then they have the sushi, and then you have this like really creepy cult school car where they're like almost literally doing Nazi salutes. It's like a hybrid of a Nazi salute and a dab. But the kids, they're like Wilfred, and they're like doing these weird motions. And Alison Pill is like totally crazy. It totally fits her.
Oh yeah, she does it great.
Yeah, and she's pregnant, and like they're like, look, here's where people tried to get away, and they died. Because they didn't have the great engine, Wilfred. Like they're doing all this crazy stuff,
and that does come into play later. Just like what's his face, played by Song Kang-ho, Namgung. The guy that's addicted.
He's the security guy. Yeah.
So you see him just like making observations the whole time, and at that point when they see the revolt of the Seven with the 7 people frozen in the landscape, he shows his daughter and just says, that woman in front was an Eskimo. She was an Inuit. She taught me all about snow, something like that. That's all I really say.
And then one of the important things to note is like as they're moving forward here, basically from this point, I already forgot his name, the Messiah guy.
Well,
Gilliam.
Gilliam.
He even says to Chris Evans, he's like, hey, like, let's just stop here.
Yeah.
So many people have died already.
Yeah,
like you've done more than anyone ever has. Like, you're a hero to these people, like, but we should stop. And he's like, no, we got to keep going forward. Because like Edgar just died, and he's like, if we stop now, then it's all for nothing, kind of. But they keep moving forward. And then this really creepy guy who you said he was an X-Men, but I couldn't ever put a finger on which character he played.
I think he was in X-Men Apocalypse and played a character named Caliban.
Was he Caliban?
I think
Caliban
so.
Was in Wolverine, wasn't he?
There's 2 Calibans.
Or Logan, excuse me, in Logan.
There's a Caliban in that. There's a Caliban in this one.
And I know it's not the Logan one.
Yeah, so it must have been the Apocalypse one.
But regardless, he's like totally hairless, I think. Or he's at least shaved head. And he's walking back, passing out hard-boiled eggs. Another thing I would have hated about this first-class society on this train. I don't like hard-boiled eggs. They smell bad.
They do have that sulfur
Hot take. But he's going back and passing out eggs, and inside Chris Evans, Curtis's egg is another message. The note in Curtis's egg just says blood.
Yeah.
And then he knows something's up, and at this point, the egg people have gotten back towards the back of the car, and they just pull out guns and they're like, it turns out we do have a few more bullets, and they just start mowing people down.
Yeah.
And I think they're still in the school car at this point, or they've gone forward a bit at least, like Curtis and them. But somehow he's able to see, they have like a tape that shows that Gilliam had been captured by one of the like antagonists that you see. He's not like an important character by any means, but and he's like being held at gunpoint. And I forget if like if they tried to like make a deal with him, like if you stop now, he'll be alive or something like that.
I don't think they do. I think they just straight up shoot him.
Yeah.
I think it was like, you guys got selfish, so we're going to shoot him. But so they didn't really explain why. Yeah.
And then he shoots Tilda Swinton here, right?
Yeah, he shoots Mason.
Out of anger, he shoots Mason. And there's a weird shootout because at this point of the train, of the tracks, like there's this huge, long curve.
Yeah.
So that like the cars were parallel to each other around this curve. And so this one suited antagonist is just like shooting through the train, and Curtis is shooting through the train. And
he was taken prisoner before by the rear people.
Yeah,
and then once the
at
Eggman
the same time that they
through,
captured Mason.
Once the Eggman came through, all of their guys were free. The guns. The Eggman cometh.
And you know what? The guy kind of looked like an egg.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. So, but no,
you said that so sadly.
I know.
Are you okay, dude?
I'm fine. I just thought about how if you look like an egg, life would be weird.
That's true.
So
that's Humpty Dumpty.
So the suited bad guy works his way back through the train with that weird, cool shootout.
Before we continue, can I make a quick aside?
Sure.
Have you ever heard the theory that Humpty Dumpty was the king?
No.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall.
Okay.
Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Why would the king send all of his men and horses unless he was the king? I'm just saying.
Humpty Dumpty was trade.
What?
Trade agreements.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, we can go back. I was just... Okay.
So it's a cool
What if
shootout.
I wrote a really dark and hard-boiled version of the Humpty Dumpty story?
You wouldn't like it then.
I wouldn't, no.
You don't like hard-boiled eggs?
I don't like anything I write.
That too.
Anyways, at this point, after Gilliam is killed, it's basically just down to Curtis and...
played by Octavia Spencer.
Well, no, I think she had died too, hadn't she?
She dies in the steam
She dies like around the same point, because like right after Gilliam dies, they're in the steam room.
Knife fight. And the skinny boy.
Yeah, the martial arts expert dies, and I knew he was going to. It was too good for that
They're fighting
world.
Like that Alex Jonesy, Rush Limbaugh guy.
Yeah, there was like a long-haired Alex Jones who wouldn't die. Ironic.
Woo.
But yeah, Octavia Spencer dies there, and as they're still moving forward, it's down to just Curtis, the security guy, and his daughter, essentially.
Yeah.
Because even in the back of the car, Egghead had been like mowing down people, and you find out more about that later. But they get to this like a den where everyone's addicted to the drug, and the security guy's just like picking up all the drugs, like taking it from people, taking people's coats and stuff. And they get right to the door. And
at this point in the film, I mean, you just know he's a drug addict.
Yeah.
So him grabbing coats are just kind of like funny and weird.
Yeah. Like, it's just like a weird thing to do.
Like if I was a drug guy, I'd do shit like that. You know?
Yeah. So they get to the end, to like the last door where Willard is, right?
Yeah.
It's Willard, right?
Wilfred.
Excuse me. And this Curtis is like, all right, security guy, open this door. And he's like, I can't open this door. And they're like arguing a bit, and then the security guy is like, but you know what? And he takes out like a brick that he built from all this stuff. And they had mentioned earlier, like in passing, that it's very explosive.
And he builds it right there. He just starts smashing it.
Yeah, he starts smashing it together. He's like, I've always wanted to get this door open.
Yeah.
This door leads to the outside world.
So you're just like, this guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah, but then he starts to explain it. He's like, every time we pass a new year, there's a plane down there.
It's been like 17 years.
It's been now 18. They're either in the 18th year.
Yeah.
And he's like, at first I could only see the tail. Yeah. And then they like flash back to him looking at it. He's like, but now I can see the wings.
Yeah.
The snow's melting. We'd be fine out there. Yeah. And at this point, he just seems insane.
He's like, it just needs a nice push to clear things out.
Exactly. Yeah. So he's like, let's blow up this door.
So you're like, this guy's fucking crazy. Yeah. His daughter's like passed out. She just was tired.
Yeah.
And then this crazy woman we saw earlier, because part of the driving plot was they took two kids from the poor people. Yeah. They brought him up, and so that's why Octavia Spencer's character Tanya and another guy, I think his name was Andrew, were with them. The guy without the arm,
who had
trying to get their
arm
kids
knocked
back.
off.
For throwing his shoe.
Yeah.
But so that's like a subplot here of what happened to these kids. Have you seen these kids? And by this point, we haven't seen anything of them.
Yeah.
But the lady who took them, she comes back out and she just shoots the security dude and is like, "Come with me, Curtis."
Yeah. She's like, "Curtis, you've made it."
Yeah. And the door's open to Wilford's place.
But there was a speech here, a conversation between the two of them that's very important.
Vital. Yeah.
So, security guy gives Curtis the last cigarette.
Yeah.
And he's smoking it.
He's like, "Take it."
Yeah, and he's like, "Do you know why Gilliam was like so important, all this?" And then they're talking about how when the train first started, things were so bad in the back.
Yeah.
That there were men in the back who were eating people.
And one thing we haven't mentioned, it's just real brief for the world setting.
Yeah.
Everyone in the front sections of the car paid for a ticket.
Yeah.
Everyone in the back are just freeloaders. They took all their stuff and left them with like scraps, basically, because they didn't pay.
Yeah.
So anything that anybody had that was nice was sent up front, and they were left with garbage, basically. Yeah. So they literally were left without food.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go on.
So, and this is while you find out later, but like while they were developing these protein bars, which you'd seen at this point already, that they're like ground up crickets and stuff. But so Curtis is talking about how like there were men going around, they would eat people, and he's like, "You know, I hate myself. It's because I know what people taste like, and I know that the babies are the most delicious."
That's still the weirdest
which
line.
is like so creepy. It like makes my skin crawl saying
it.
And
it's gross.
And he's talking, and he's like, and it got to the point where the men, they got to this one baby, and they took him, and they were about to eat him, and then
they killed the mom. Yeah,
they killed the mom. They're about to eat the child, and then Gilliam took the kid, and all the men thought, "Oh, well, he's just gonna kill the baby so we can eat it." And he took the kid, and he said, "Here, and like eat me instead of this baby," and he cuts his arm off.
Yeah.
And he's like, "And I know that because I was the man who took the child
and killed the mom.
And killed the mom, yeah. And that child was Edgar.
Yeah.
And
Jamie Bell,
all this is like reveals. And like earlier in the movie, like you can think back and like there's a conversation where Curtis asks Edgar, like, "Do you remember anything about your mom?" And and Edgar's like, "Oh, not really." Like
there's
just kind of the face.
Where Curtis shows he has an arm scar where he tried to cut off his own arm but couldn't. He shows that to Gilliam, and Gilliam's like, "Your time will come."
Yeah,
you have
because
two arms,
like
you can hold a woman.
This is after the arm got lobbed off by the frostbite, and then Curtis is talking to Gilliam. This is way earlier in the film. We're kind of bouncing around, but this conversation reveals a lot about the story because he says to Gilliam, he's like, "I can't lead these people. I have both my arms."
Yeah,
and you think it's like, oh well, the people who rebel get their arms lobbed off. Gilliam's missing an arm. That's all that means.
Yeah.
But really, Gilliam became their leader because he cut his arm off. It was such like a selfless act that everybody started doing it.
Yeah.
And Curtis wanted to, but he was too weak. He too weak of mind.
Yeah.
But Gilliam like forgave him.
And he obviously tried.
Yeah, because there is a scar. Yeah. But Gilliam forgave him and was like, "It's okay." Like, and then he said the line when they were talking about it, like, "It takes two arms to hold a woman." Like, there's a lot you can't do without two arms and stuff. But
apparently, it's just a little side note here. The original screenplay and story that they wrote had a romance like subplot
between Gilliam and Curtis.
I don't know, between Curtis and someone.
Okay.
But they took it out because it just wasn't working.
Gilliam and Curtis would be hot.
Gross. They couldn't make it.
Why is that gross?
Just thinking of John Hurt and Chris Evans making out just does not do it for me.
It's doing it for me right now.
Wilford and Curtis, I'm in.
Three-way.
That's...
So it's John Hurt that grosses you out?
Yeah. All those wrinkles.
Wow.
That voice is beautiful, though. I'll give him that.
I like a few folds.
I want to sound drop that so bad now.
Anyways.
So yeah, this is
a really enlightening, eye-opening speech.
Yeah.
You find out a lot about Curtis, why he has these hang-ups about leadership, why, like I had touched on how Gilliam had that Messiah-like factor, but they never really went into why.
Yeah.
And this reveals why. Like that's how he became a leader. And
he was willing to give everything, basically.
Yeah. And then Baby Snatcher comes out, shoots security guy.
And then
Curtis goes in.
Curtis is invited to the final stage.
And then
engine.
It's revealed who Wilfred is. He is alive.
He's alive. He's Ed Harris.
He's Ed Harris.
Yeah.
I like that. And they have a conversation there. Like, he's like making steak and stuff. And Curtis is like fighting.
I really like that.
Curtis is like fighting the urge to just like kill him right there
and
like actually eat the steak. And he's like Wilfred's living like a pretty normal life.
Yeah.
You know?
Like we've just seen basically like the Hunger Games District 1 or whatever for like 8 cars in a row.
Yeah.
And you get here and it's just a dude. He's wearing like a nice robe and cooking some food, but he's just chilling.
Yep. But then he explains everything to Curtis. And it's crazy enough that I'm going to have you explain it because I don't know if I got it.
Okay. So basically what's going on is everything's for the engine. The engine keeps them moving. So even Wilfred himself kind of has this like reverence for the engine, even though he himself is revered throughout the train. But he keeps doing this one hand motion that I just did, so you guys can't see it. But
it's a reach, a grab,
turn,
and a clockwise turn, and a pullback.
It's very mechanical.
Very mechanical.
So he just keeps referring to some kind of order on the train, doing that symbol, and he's like, beyond me, everything that's important in this train is that everything is the exact number. We need the right number of people, right number of food, right number of,
if
living
it's
souls,
not right, the whole ecosystem,
the resources, exactly.
is
like, it's a controlled system. And it's commendable that you guys want a better life, but we have to have it set up this way. And it's like, so, I've been talking to Gilliam, and we're really into you. Like, you're a great successor for me because I'm old. I'm going to die one day, and Gilliam's going to die. Gilliam's going to die one day too. Like, it's just going to happen. So basically, you've made it to the front of the train, and I think you're going to be my successor now.
But even he there says, like, you were never supposed to make it to the front.
He's
no
like,
one's made it this far.
You weren't supposed to.
And like this conversation reveals that he had been working with Gilliam.
Yes.
That the revolution that they do is set up on purpose to have people die.
To prune, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at first it seems like they're going to... God, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, nice, dude.
No, at first it seems like he's doing a trick. Like, oh yeah, I know Gilliam.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And the line that reveals that we just brushed upon is he's like, it takes 2 hands to hold a woman, it takes 2 arms.
Yeah.
And that's when us, the audience, and Curtis realizes they really were communicating.
And then he like hits there's like a little logo with his name on it, and he moves it, and there's a phone, and he calls the back of the train. Yeah. Like, they never knew that there was communication there.
Yeah, and the same logo they show was behind Gilliam's head every time they showed his room. Yeah. And they showed them using those phones throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And he calls the back of the train, and Egghead is there, and he's like, how many people have died? And he says, whatever. He's like, well, kill one more, or something like that.
Or it's like, they're like, make sure we kill up to 74%.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
They needed a specific number,
Yeah.
And then they just keep going into how Willard and Gilliam had worked together, or Wilfred and Gilliam. I keep saying Willard. That's not his name. Had been working together, like, from the start to make sure that the system was like orderly. Like, Gilliam knew, back of the train sucks, but it's important. Like, without this, there's no society. So he was making sacrifices and all this, and it was like pretty eye opening,
Yeah, and so the whole speech kind of works where, Curtis is like, I don't necessarily agree with this, but then he brings him in to the engine, and it's just like, take some alone time, man. Like, just chill in here for a second. You haven't been alone in 17 years at all. Take a moment.
Yeah.
And you just see Chris Evans like...
He just falls to his knees. He's
having a breakdown for a minute.
Surrounded by this engine, I mean, it's a crazy thing.
So then after that, he's kind of worn down, where he's like, I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah. At the same time, we see Yuna, the daughter of the security guy, wake up, and she sees that her dad is now fighting off. No, he's bleeding first.
He's bleeding.
But then all the drug addicts show up.
Yeah, there's like this one bridge.
Angry mob. Yeah, this tiny little bridge. And they have to...
they stole their coats and their drugs.
Their coats and their drugs, exactly. But... they're coming across with like improvised weapons to attack them, and so security dad there starts fighting them off, and then you see Alex Jones get back up, and he's back too. And so she starts freaking out, and she goes. I think she runs to Curtis looking for matches.
Well, she sets up the
bomb.
The bomb now on the door to go outside, and they need a match to light it, and Curtis had the last one.
And so she runs up to Curtis, and he like stops her. He pushes her. He's like, "No, like this isn't. We should do what he says, basically." Yeah. And at the same exact moment, she's like, "No, you got to look at this," and then runs over and reveals the kid thing.
Yeah. So I'd kind of forgotten about the kids. It'd been a while since they directly mentioned it. Yeah.
So
they buried the lead.
Literally.
Yeah.
So she pulls up on a floor panel, and you see Tanya's son. I forgot his name, but he's crunched up in some mechanics. He's still alive.
Tyler?
But maybe.
I think it was Tyler.
It might be Tyler. Yeah. He's like in almost like a fetal sitting position, doing the arm thing that we saw Wilford doing.
Yeah,
pulling out
in the gears of the engine.
Pulling out like a soot buildup, gross shit from the engine.
Yeah. And then
Curtis kind of wakes up immediately.
Yeah. And Wilfred's like, it takes a sacrifice to do this.
He's like, the engine's perpetual, it's perfect, but the parts aren't. They run out sometimes. That part's now extinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it cuts back to the cigarettes.
Yep.
In a way. But no. Nice. But no, so Curtis there is kind of jolted back to his senses.
Yeah.
Where he's like, this isn't right.
Yeah, and then they like open up a cabinet, and like the other kid, because they had taken 2 kids, the other kid gets out and just like hops in too.
Yeah, Curtis stops the thing. He like shoves his arm.
Yeah, he shoves his arm in there to stop it.
And cut off. Some symbolism there. Yeah. But so he shoves it in the gears.
Yeah. And then it activates like an emergency protocol of the engine. This whole other compartment of the engine opens up. And then the second child just like climbs out of a cupboard and walks into the engine. Yeah, it's very depressing.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'm just saying, like, the kid nailed that role. So he just climbs in and he just starts working his machine and it goes away. Yeah. And so Curtis gives Una the matches, and she goes and she starts the bomb up again.
And Curtis is like desperate to get the child, tiniest child, I believe it was Tyler, out of the workings of this machine.
And so he basically has to break his arm.
Yeah.
I think
what happens to Wilfred here?
He punches Wilfred out.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if he punched him right before. I think he punched him right before he shoves his arm in. So he shoves his arm in, breaks his arm off to rescue the kid. Yep. And then him and Security Dad, they just embrace around the two kids.
Yep.
Una and Tyler are in the center, embraced by basically the 2 train dads, I guess. But, and then they can't save the other guy.
The 2 train dads.
They can't save the little kid up front, who was Andrew's son.
They also didn't really try, admittedly.
Well, you can't really get to him if you know there's a bomb going on.
Yeah, but it was a little comical.
No effort. I agree. There was no effort.
Yeah. Well, here's one of these kids like, that's good.
Yeah. Still got 1 out of 2. 50%.
Not bad.
Yeah. But yeah, so they blow up the train.
Yeah, and when that happens, it kind of like triggers an avalanche. Because like the train doesn't go off the tracks when this bomb goes off necessarily,
but the force of the bomb.
Yeah. And it's just like how Security Dad said, like it just takes like one push and you're going to see it fall apart.
Yeah.
And like rocks and snow fall.
Yeah, so huge avalanche happens. It destroys like just the entire end of the train.
Yeah.
The 3 carts down, they're all just like pushed away, and who knows what happens to that. I assume they're all dead.
Sure.
Yeah. But basically, the train crashes, and we see emerge from it Una and Tyler, the 2 kids, basically, and everyone else is dead.
They got their big coats on.
Everyone else is blowed up.
Well, they don't show you like a corpse.
No, you see a little charred flesh on one person, but that's about it.
But they walk outside the train, and they don't instantly die like the 7 there, or the 5,
they're
I
not
guess.
Instantly freezing.
They had frozen within sight of the train, and the sun is shining, and they look around, and then they see up on the hill.
Up on the hill, there's a polar bear.
With a Coca-Cola.
Yeah. And Santa Claus. No, they just see a polar bear walking around, but it's signs of life, basically. Yeah.
And thus ends the movie. I pitched a sequel.
Ooh.
The exact same train scenario, just barely out of sight of the Snowpiercer train, but full of polar bears. And the exact same thing happens like seconds prior to that explosion. You see 2 polar bears emerge from that train, and then you hear another explosion, and the polar bear runs up to the hill and looks down, and you see Una and Tyler.
That sequel, it's titled Polar Bear Express.
Oh, nice, dude. Give me it up top.
We just need a high five sound effect to make that easy.
Yeah, we do. Just like how we spent probably an hour recording the perfect dice roll.
Yeah,
which we haven't used in a year. There it is. Perfect. Actually, now I'm hearing it again. It's pretty quiet. We need to step that up.
Slow, man.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we'll get the perfect high five. We'll spend a month on.
Yeah,
that could be your podcast idea next week. The perfect high five.
You save your pitches, dude.
My bad. Yeah. You had mentioned before we watched, like last week we talked probably more than we should have about Snowpiercer for won the poll. We talked for like 10 minutes about it.
Yeah.
But you said you weren't sure if I was going to like it.
I wasn't.
And I also wasn't. So it was a totally fair thing, but I loved it.
Awesome.
It's excellent. Yeah. I love original sci-fi.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. And it just took me a little push to get in to watch the film.
Yeah.
But it's not the perfect film, but like it's excellent.
It's really well made.
And there's very few cons. I have a couple written down. We touched on one already. Not even necessarily as a con, but we talked about how the first like 2/3 of the movie has this incredible momentum of the action and it's a constant drive. But then that last act really does slow down to a crawl. Sure. And the movie's like 2 hours long, and it still felt long because the last act felt so much slower than the first two.
Yeah.
So the overall package felt long in the end. And that's never like a good thing to notice, but it was fine in this case.
I think we also watched, I'm not discounting what you mean at all, because I kind of get what you're saying, but we also watched way later than we normally watch.
That's fine, yeah.
So I think we were hitting our sleepy range right when it slowed down, which is never a good combo.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then there's one scene earlier in the movie during like the action points where Curtis slips on a fish.
God, Chris Evans hated that scene too,
and he was right. It was awful. I hated it.
I like it.
It's like a slapstick moment in like a tense action part of the movie.
No, I get why it doesn't work for people, but I love the usage of the fish first to show. Like them cutting the blades and the blood and how like it's just like an intimidation move.
Yeah, so this is like the biggest action scene, like right before the lights go out.
Yeah.
Those people with the hatchets are like gutting a fish and putting the blood on their axes and stuff to intimidate. And then later on, Curtis just slips on that fish like head over heels like it's a banana peel. I really hated it. And
that's fair. I get that. Yeah. I loved it, but I loved
dumb.
it because it's dumb.
Yeah.
But that's just, sometimes I love shit like that. Yeah. So it's
it was so like out of place for me for the movie.
No, I feel you.
And then I mentioned the like one scene with the cigarettes that was like a little on the nose and expository in like not a good way. And there was like a couple moments like that, but the whole package, I didn't feel like the movie treated the audience like they were dumb.
No.
Like a worse movie like the one Harvey Weinstein wanted this to be. Like the start would have been like in a world.
Yeah.
Like it would have been.
I mean, just think of like
bad.
I don't think you've ever seen that cut of Blade Runner, but there's the narration cut of Blade Runner.
I haven't seen it, no.
And then there's the director's cut and all those other cuts without narration. Yeah. And how it changes the tone of the movie completely.
Yeah.
And a movie like this would be so shitty with narration.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then with, those bookended monologues, I don't think it would just detract.
Doesn't serve. What would the end monologue have said? Would have been like, Una and Tyler lived with the polar bears, wondering were their fathers alive? Or something. There's nothing it could have
And they
added.
Restarted the human race. It's irrelevant if they restarted it. Like they lived.
They fucked endlessly.
Yeah. There was an age difference, which is weird.
Yeah. But no, the whole package is a really good movie.
Yeah.
And I recommend it to anyone. It is hard to find, which is
that's
weird.
A shame.
It's
and
totally
I wonder if that's
unavailable
because,
to rent.
Like all the Weinstein stuff happened and this company was kind of chipped
I don't
apart
know.
and sold.
I don't know because like I remember right after it came out, like you said, it came out on VOD around the same time as it's released, and it did.
And it was streaming.
It was on Netflix for a long time. I think it was on Amazon Prime for a spell as well. But it's not for rent on Amazon. It's not on Netflix. It's not on anything. The only place you had to buy it on Amazon.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. But if you do come across maybe a Blu-ray or any way to really watch it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's very
and then Bong Joon-Ho, if he did do Okja, it's also very good.
Yeah.
Very different from this, but it has the same kind of original sci-fi nature to
I want to watch it.
Do it, man.
It's on Netflix still.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original.
So.
That would be nuts if they took it down.
Dude, you never know.
That's true.
Maybe they just took off all of the Bong films.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess.
They didn't, but...
What if they did that just to like purposely add like scarcity,
I don't know if it's still happening, but there's rumors of a TV show.
Yeah, I was reading that it is supposed to still happen. And Jennifer Connelly.
That's interesting. Maybe they'll bring that romance subplot back in
the last, because I wasn't sure, because I saw that like starting in 2015 it was in production. It
looks like one team was on it and they jumped off and then another team jumped
in. Yeah, but it's going to be on TNT, and as of July of 2018 it was like still in the works and like actually being produced.
That's interesting.
Or having been produced already. I want to find the exact language.
I feel like they can.
Yeah, production started in September of 2017. The series will broadcast in the United States on TNT while Netflix acquired the rights for international distribution in July.
I feel like you could make a strong show out of it, but at the same time, I also feel like I don't need that in any single way.
They touch on a history during this movie, like
I mean, there's 17 years of history. If
you
want to.
And there was like another revolution, and
if you wanted to
like
just
that.
Stay within the realm of the movie without passing it,
you would have to do something like that.
Yeah, you can do prequel-y type of history. Yeah. If you want to just reinterpret the story and tell your own,
you
based off that premise, you could do it too.
I would do like the first days of Snowpiercer.
That could be
like a Snowpiercer departure.
Yeah.
That's what I'd call it. And be about the train just starting. And then Jennifer Connelly is going to play. She was a city planner before, living in Toronto. And now she's part of like the planning of the car, and she thinks all the people should be like equal, and she's setting all this stuff up, and there's people working against her, and that's my version.
So will the whole season take place in the real world, and then the last episode is like the train actually happening?
No. The whole season takes place on the train, but it's like the first days when things are still like kind of wild because nobody knows what's going on. And she's like, well, I'm going to go to the back of the car, and we'll find out how to stop it. And people are like, no! Don't go.
When you first described it, I imagined like a couple episodes set in the real world with it getting colder and colder and colder.
We'll have flashbacks.
Yeah.
Flashbacks.
Okay, that's interesting.
I pictured that like once the chemical agent was released, it was like not instant, but near instant, like within days.
Yeah. It
so
seems
not like
that
an
because people
overtime.
they showed the cars
Flash
full
frozen,
of people.
like in their cars, kind of. But then the first season's going to end. Episode 10 will end with Jennifer Connelly. She gets past him. She's finally going back to the back of the car because she knows something's up. The door opens, and Chris Evans just looks up. There's a baby's leg in his mouth, blood dripping down everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
TNT.
We know drama. Is that their what's TNT's slogan?
I think it is now.
It's like where drama happens?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I honestly don't know.
You said yeah.
I was just agreeing because
I don't think you listened
at the idea of Chris Evans with baby feet in his mouth.
I don't think you listened.
It's hard to hear
Anyways,
with baby parts on the brain.
Yeah. So, where can the good people find us?
You can find us using 2 arms to hold a woman. Or you can find us at thecriticalbreakdown.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook. You're going to use that?
Yeah.
Nice. Be weird if you just used it as your line. You can find us all over the place, man. You can find us everywhere.
Yeah, dude.
You can find me throwing dead fish near Scott, hoping he slips. Or you can find me on Twitter at Max Rivera Film.
You can find me using 2 arms to hold a woman. Or you can find me at breakdown_Scott on Instagram. I'm not going to pitch the Twitter again. I'm already done using it. Or at Stenin2 on Letterboxd.
We did run another poll on Twitter, on my personal Twitter.
Yeah, we did. I think yours won in the end, right?
Yeah, it was weird. I didn't expect it to.
No,
I
didn't
yours
either.
Better.
And I think part of it was since you spelt it Leonard. So we both pitched third movies for the Joe Dirt franchise, and what the titles would be. Yours was
Joe Dirt, Sexy Bitch.
Yeah. And mine was Joe Dirt, Leonard Skin Turd.
Yeah.
And I think the only problem was you spelled it like Leonard like a name instead of like Leonard like Skinnerd.
Not
Leonard
on Twitter.
Skinnerd. Oh, you didn't?
I fixed it on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
I texted someone Leonard.
Gotcha. Okay. I had I didn't check the poll.
Yeah.
So
I fixed it.
But I think yours had more votes, right?
Yeah, by like 2.
Yeah. So everyone, I think that poll's still open.
No, I closed. Unfortunately.
Did you vote with the?
No, I didn't. I was worried it would show up.
Yeah. Plus, it would say that you voted for Sexy Bitch, which is objectively the worst title. Joe Dirt would never call anyone a bitch. He would never acknowledge himself as a bitch.
He is.
No, he respects women too much to even call himself a bitch.
The sequel's called Beautiful Loser.
Yeah,
so I was running off that theme.
Not Beautiful Bitch.
Bitch isn't a bad. When you say it like that, it sounds bad. When I say it's different.
The Beautiful Loser is Robbie.
Who's that? Robbie's not even in that movie,
Kid
dude.
Rock.
Sugar Ray's in that movie.
Yeah, but you know who Robbie is.
I'm just saying, who's Robbie for the sequel? Robbie comes back in Sexy Bitch, and he's the sexy bitch. There you go.
Okay.
Guys, keep an eye out on Twitter, and we'll have more stupid polls.
Yeah. Josh Rivera did our art.
Jason Brown did our music.
Wally is the podcast. Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer.
I like that. Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah. And we're just another cog in the machine.
Back into the left.
And we're sexy bitches.